Greetings, this is Matt Fiello, Technical Marketing Engineer with the Cisco Cloud Networking Compute BU, and we're back with another Intersight Managed Mode Expert Series video. In this video, we're going to focus on the Ethernet network control policy from a server profile perspective. For those of you that have viewed the other Expert Series videos, you might recall this video showed up in the domain policy uh, playlist, and that's certainly true. But this time it's applying to our server profiles. Okay, so with that, we're going to have our usual routine of introducing the policy and its parameters in a few slides, and then we'll follow up with a short video. So just to start off, let's level set. Within Intersight, we have a total of 38 policies for our server profile. So that's both FI attached or IMM mode as well as standalone C-series mode. So of those 38 total policies, we're really going to be focusing on these 29. So the highlighted policies we're going to discount for this playlist of this series. Everything else, the 29 here, apply to Intersight Managed Mode, which means it's FI managed, okay, or it's southbound of an FI, to include C-series servers that are plugged in through effects to the FI or directly attached to the FI. As we go to Intersight and go into infrastructure service and go down to policies, we're going to filter on UCS server policies. We can see that we're going to select the Ethernet network control policy. All right, so let's describe this policy a little bit. First of all, it's a server policy, and it's also a nested policy within the LAN connectivity policy. So you're not going to directly attach this to the server profile template. You're going to attach it to your LAN connectivity policy when you build that. When you start adding VNICs, then you have the capability to attach this policy. And really, it allows you to affect how discoverable the UCS ecosystem is, your server upstream. Okay. And you certainly have the choice of using either the Cisco Discovery Protocol, which is proprietary for Cisco gear upstream, Cisco switches, or the link level discovery protocol. As far as my reference to domain policies, yes, we saw this over in the domain policy playlist. Okay, but when you craft a Ethernet network control policy as a domain policy, you would only see that if you are actually creating appliance ports or port channels. So that's not the majority of use cases when it comes to standing up a UCS system. So this very well might be the first time you've seen this policy on the server side, if you're not doing appliance ports or port channels on the domain side. Now, to get into the specifics of the Ethernet network control policy, we're going to dedicate this next several slides to that. So let's continue on. So when you create this policy, the first setting you'll be presented with is the Cisco Discovery Protocol, and it's turned off by default. You can enable it, but it only really makes sense to do so if you have Cisco switching upstream from your fabric interconnects. It is a proprietary protocol. The next setting you get to is MAC register mode, and that's whether you want to register the MAC address only on the native VLAN itself, the single native VLAN that gets uplinked, or the alternative, all host VLANs. Typically, like in a managed service provider space or a very large enterprise where you're having lots and lots of VLANs, that's the only time you're going to select native VLAN only. Also, a special case if you have a trunking driver being used on the host and the interface is in promiscuous mode, we recommend that the MAC registration mode is set to all VLANs. Okay, so another important setting for this policy is what action do you want when the uplink fails? So you got an FI uplink, border port goes down, uplink goes down for any reason. What about that server VIC? Do you want that port to go down or just throw a warning? The default behavior is actually linked down, and that's probably, for most cases, the desired behavior. Um, when would you switch that? Well, maybe you have multiple servers in a east-west cluster within the chassis. Um, you want that communications to prevail. So you might just go with the warning versus link down. Or, maybe it's a lab environment and you don't want necessarily um, the VIC to go down. But, there's a reason why we set it as default as link down. That's going to probably best service most customer use cases out there. The next setting has to do with max security. Okay. Um, the default is to allow from a max security standpoint, port security standpoint. And so basically all um, server packets are accepted at the Fabric Interconnect, regardless of the MAC address. If you set it to deny, yes, you're basically enabling port security, okay, but be wary of that. If you're using any kind of a bonding driver or NIC teaming, okay, in the OS or hypervisor, you don't want to set deny, okay, because those packets will be silently rejected if you have any kind of a failover. All right, so be careful of that. Again, the default setting is to allow. That's the safest approach. And then if your specific use case warrants, then go to deny. The next setting is the LLDP, link level discovery protocol. So if you're not using Cisco upstream of your fabric interconnects, your Cisco switching, if you have another vendor, then you might want to consider using LLDP to make your UCS ecosystem more discoverable upstream. Okay, so you have the options of enabling transmit or enabling receive. Again, that just makes your mixed devices more aware of each other by exchanging information. It does add some broadcast traffic, so you might want to consider asking your network administrator to see what any current policies are, protocols about that in your organization. But you're probably going to want to take advantage of LLDP if you're not Cisco switched upstream. Is it a required policy? I always like to address this in these videos. It's not required in so much as I can still deploy a server profile without this policy. Yes, I can do that, but you're probably going to want to configure this policy. So I recommend using it at least with the default settings, which are safe settings. In other words, no MAC forging, okay, to allow, okay, and you have to basically enable CDP or LLDP. So that goes with recommendations. Keep the default settings in lack of any other use case to change those settings. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about verification for the settings for the Ethernet network control. In this case, the policy, like whether you're setting CDP or LLDP, those settings aren't really present on the physical NIC, but rather the VETH, the virtual Ethernet adapter corresponding to the VNIC that you create with the LAN connectivity policy and is present on the FI. So if you go ahead and secure shell into the FI and log in, connect to the NXOS shell, you can do a show DP question mark. You can see the commands that you can run, as well as show LLDP question mark. You can see the LLDP commands, whatever corresponds to your setup and your use case. And as with all IMM Expert Series videos, I like to show a graphic that shows the relationship of the server profile template to the actual policy in question, in this case, the Ethernet network control policy. As you can see on the left here, these are direct attached policies, this big column of policies here, the LAN connectivity policy at the bottom there. As you build out that LAN connectivity policy, and specifically as you add a VNIC, then you're going to have the policies on the right here, these embedded policies exposed to access and attach to your VNIC. So that's where you're going to do. You're going to build your Ethernet network control policy, and then as you add a VNIC or VNICs, you're able to attach that policy to the VNIC itself. Okay, so let's perform a short demo and create the policy. Here we are in Intersight Infrastructure Service, and we're down in Policies, and we're going to create a policy. I always like to use my filters for platform type, so select UCS Server because we're building a server policy. And we can see that we have Ethernet network control. Click Start. Give it a friendly name. Click Next. And again, depending on what your setup is, being that I'm Cisco and we have Cisco upstream, I'm going to enable CDP, but I'm pretty much going to keep the defaults thereafter. If you're not Cisco upstream, you might want to consider enabling LLDP down here, but it's a pretty simple policy for the most part, accepting the defaults, and click Create. Okay, we're going to refresh the screen, and there we go. So now that policy is ready to attach to a VNIC in my LAN connectivity policy. So that completes our video today about Ethernet network control policies. I hope you were able to pick up a few tips. Stay tuned for more Intersight Managed Mode Expert Series videos. Thank you.